Good afternoon. Welcome to Kevin Toll Reads. So today we have a book review of Lawrence Block, The Thief Who Couldn't Sleep. First, I wanted to read you an excerpt of this. I had told Starvik there would be no revolution, not in his beloved Croatia, not anywhere. I was, after all, no revolutionary, no agent provocateur. I was simply a treasure hunter headed for a cache of gold. But it was I who had sparked this, and it was, after all, a revolution. Mills, bombs, Molotov cocktails, barricades thrown up in streets, bursts of gunfire, the screams of the wounded, these were not sound effects, not bits of the backdrop of a movie, but the sounds of a popular rising, a revolution. This was an interesting read. I did some research online after I finished earlier today, and a lot of people that posted reviews of the book said that they had a really hard time kind of categorizing what genre this really was for them. Even people that were accustomed and were popular readers of Lawrence Block. This book was published in 1966. It's obviously the first of 8 books in the Evan Tanner series by Lawrence Block. And I found the research a little interesting about that because even though I just finished the book earlier today, I don't really understand really how to categorize it like the rest of them. If I had to give it my best guess, I would say this is kind of thriller mystery, although it's humorous in parts, and some of it's offhanded. You don't really understand until you do some reflection about the story, but overall, I mean, it was a great read, and I generally enjoyed it. So the summary. So Evan Tanner is a war veteran that had an accident in the Korean War that affected, a piece of shrapnel hit him in the head. It affected part of his brain, and so he can no longer sleep. And unlike most human beings that require sleep before they end up dying, he unfortunately does not sleep. So he resides in New York City. His apartment is filled with books and articles and journals. And so because he has all this free time where he just doesn't sleep, he spends a lot of time doing things. And some of the things he does is pretty neat, and I'll get into some of the likes later. But the summary is, okay, so as we meet Evan Tanner and understand his situation, he meets a young lady and in love interest meets the grandmother, and the grandmother says some interesting things, especially considering the fact that he can speak her language. And so she shares with him a story about this house in Turkey. And apparently they smuggled all of the gold before war outbreak, and they hid it in the porch and poured concrete over the porch and forms and hid all of this gold. And to her knowledge, she believes it's still there. So this kind of sparks this thievery mission that he goes on to try to see what he can do to retrieve the gold and cash it in and that kind of thing. And he really doesn't have kind of a plan, so to speak, but he knows where he's going, and he believes in the story from the grandmother. So that kind of sets the story, the stage of what this book's about. All the while, obviously, it being a first book in a series, you're getting to learn a lot about the character. So what did I like about the book? I really like, obviously, the main character. It's Evan Tanner. In this book in particular, you don't really see a vast array of characters, although he's meeting a lot of different people throughout his pilgrimage, his imprisonment, of a couple times from a couple different nations. And then obviously you see him in a social engineering network. And so that was very interesting. Obviously, because he can't sleep, how does he spend his time? He's an avid reader. Like I said, in his New York apartment, he has periodicals and journals. So one of the cool things that I liked is he writes thesis and doctoral papers for people for cash. And so I thought it was interesting. He does it very quickly. All the while, he does these other little odds and ends jobs. He doesn't really have a steady job. His job really is his, his intrigue and what he does. And so he seems to be affluent. He seems not to have, any care about the world. He seems very carefree, and I like that about the character as well. Like I said, it's funny at times. I thought, it had a really good sense of humor in places. I also thought it was very fast paced. I mean, this is a 250-page book, and I think a lot happens in 250 pages. So I think Block does a really good job of both balancing, here's the first entry into this new character, all while providing you this plot that seems to move along without getting too invested in person, places, and things, so to speak. There was no really side characters that I truly kind of thought about. I mean, when he gets to the point where he does in Macedonia, they kind of do this revolution thing, which is from the excerpt I read. I really liked, I think it was Tudor, I think it was his name, and I really liked him. Obviously, Evan writes these letters to these various groups and memberships that he's a part of, and some of them are just crazy. There's the, Irish Nationals. They're, all over the world, he's a member of these groups. And so it sets the stage in how he makes his way, through these checkpoints and different places. Because you got to remember this, the timing of this book is, in the 50s, 60s, roughly era. So there is definitely a technological difference. But I didn't really feel like that added or detracted from the story at all. As far as dislikes, I mean, with the beauty of the book being fast paced, you don't get a lot of extra side characters or supporting cast that maybe would have, taken a load off of the main character. It wasn't really needed, but at the same time, it would have been nice to see someone that he connects. Being a first entry, I mean, there's not a lot I disliked about the book. I'm hopeful that the next 7 books will see his character evolve over time, and you'll get to know more about him. You'll get to see maybe some supporting cast that may be reoccurring themes, which are reoccurring characters in the stories, and that always kind of lends itself to something that I enjoy. Overall, I gave this book a 4.1 out of 5. I thought it was great first entry. I mean, it was everything that I expected it to be. I expected to connect with the character. I did. It was fast-paced. Lawrence Block can write quick-paced books and does a pretty good job generally of mixing the plot, character development, setting, place. So I was overall very pleased with it. So if you get a chance, Lawrence Block, The Thief Who Couldn't Sleep, published in 1966. Give it a 4.1. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks.